Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. Yes, folks, we are back again this week, despite the snafus of last week. I am your host, Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can also find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can also find me on Instagram at CBCaps. Yes, and that wonderful sound effect, as always, is being brought to you by our man in Brooklyn, @1agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at?
And if you're watching the video, and yes, hopefully the folks this week, there is going to be video, you will see that we are rejoined by none other than, Lord, what in the world are you doing?
I was just going to do some dentistry. What's going on?
Oh, yes. One PCN_dirt. Yes, PCN_dirt on Twitter, PopCultureNet on Twitter, PopCultureNetwork.com, and all his umbrella sites therein, and also the Vine replacement Byte, BYTE, under Comic Reviews, no vowels.
Springfield, it's a hell of a town.
It's really not. It's a terrible town. Don't ever come here.
I mean, but which one? Which one? Like the one where The Simpsons is, or the one where G.I. Joe is?
We're more like the fake town the Cobra set up in G.I. Joe in order to make everybody go crazy. Yes.
Oh! Shout out to YouTube where I see one a homie of mine. What up, Tito? Is in the chat. And yes, folks, we do record live every Thursday night, 9:30 p.m. on the Click Nation's YouTube channel. That's DKALIQNATION. And actually, you could also go to, well, you know what? I'll save all the rest of that for later. Let's just go ahead and get into the rest of this. You can find this here podcast on the Coast of the Podcast Network at CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find this here podcast on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or the Coastal of Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. And yeah, like I said, we do record video. Hi, Mom. Anyway, we are you're so silly, Tito. We are actually have some new releases this week, folks. Believe it or not, this is one of those weeks where new books have actually come out in a good clump to where we can actually talk about them. Because, we're still kind of in that moment where, it's not happening that swiftly. But, slowly but surely we're getting back out of that. Like, the new releases are coming more and more frequently, and we're getting back into a steady pace of stuff that is happening. And also shout out to Matt Wayne 97, who says he can't watch tonight, but he'll be here. Who's always here at Spirit. We got to have him on again one of these days. Maybe... Yeah, we'll listen about next week's thing. He'll be on for that if he wants to. But we'll talk about that in the show. So, folks, let us get into this week's books. Starting off with Justice League number 47. So, who wants to? Don't everybody talk at once.
I'll just start with the broad overview. This is the last issue in what I think is a 3 or 4 issue arc. Involving recent happenings with Jim Corrigan, the host of the Spectre, and how that has played into several parts of the DC universe, including Themyscira and its link to Tartarus, which was traditionally understood to be where the Titans of old had been imprisoned by the gods of Olympus after they were overthrown by the gods of Olympus. So that's essentially where we find ourselves over the course of the last several issues. And what happened at the end of the last issue is apparently a being, and this is mild spoilers because it essentially opens up with this character, a being that is essentially the spirit of Tartarus, or the embodiment of Tartarus, emerges from this passage, and it's taking on the entirety of the Justice League, while Jim Corrigan is, I guess, wallowing is the best way to put it. So that's where we find ourselves at the beginning of this issue. You guys can chime in as as necessary. But essentially, this Tartarus is taking on the entirety of the Justice League, and the spirit of vengeance that Jim Corrigan had essentially rejected is running rampant across the world, and is infecting infecting pretty much every denizen, every living being with the, I don't want to call it the spirit of vengeance, because it's not exactly what I think of. I think of, hellfire and brimstone and motorcycles. But I'm a Marvel guy, so that's why.
Well, but it's not, they kind of briefly discussed that it's not, without a human tether, what comes out isn't really vengeance, it's more revenge.
Gotcha.
Without that human tether to figure out how to judge. So basically everyone is just going nuts, and every small grievance they've held against anyone else is turning into a major fight, including, and I will give them credit for this, they mentioned in Liverpool, the Finches, which is Everton. Everton is the other team that's in Liverpool, and they mentioned the Hammers, which is West Ham. So they have the Everton fans versus the West Ham fans, the Finches versus the Hammers, going at it in a bar.
Which would have happened anyway, regardless of any prodding by the spirit of vengeance. Let's be honest.
So that was actually an accurate reference.
Yeah, there actually is a team called the Finches. Well, I mean, they're Everton, but everybody calls them the Finches.
Soccer hooligans. Excuse me, football hooligans.
Understood.
But anyway, it's almost basically like raw emotion just kind of took over everybody, or raw hate, I guess, for lack of a better word, just kind of took over everybody because of this unchecked, human tether thing that happened. But I kind of expected the fight to go on, especially a fight that's seemingly of this magnitude, to kind of go on a little longer than this one issue. Because basically what ends up happening is like, oh, yeah, the Justice is doing this fight. Jim Corrigan's having this pretty much literal come to Jesus moment, I guess. And being just kind of gets this. We assume he takes back the mantle of the Spectre. That's what all that thing at the end comes back. That happens. And then, everything's cool. The world's all happy and nice and everybody's getting along. That's because that's realistic. And, kumbaya. And that's it. We're done here. So this is pretty much basically a filler arc, is what I'm telling you, folks. This whole thing didn't start out as a, well, I don't know. I can't say whether it's good or bad.
The one thing I will say though is that it does do a good job, especially like I read 45, 46, 47 all in a row because I've been reading weird with the quarantine and everything. But in this particular issue, in 45, they do address a lot of the stuff that's been going on in the individual characters' books.
Right.
And so that does give you that moment of being like, okay, well, Superman revealed his secret identity to the world. How does the rest of the league feel about that? And so it gave an opportunity, to bring up stuff like that in here. So at least they worked some of that stuff into the story, so it wasn't like just a complete monster of the week, beat them up and go home type thing. But again, to kind of mirror what you were saying though, I was surprised that it just ended. Like I'm so used to, these stories that every writer nowadays, it seems like they're working on this 100 issue opus of an ongoing, and so it was surprising to get to the end and they were just like, okay, I'm glad we all worked that out. Nice to see you. Yes, nice to see you. Nice to see you. We're the Justice League. Glad this is all okay. Everybody see you next week. And off they went. So that was kind of odd. It just wrapped up nice and cleanly at the end.
I don't know. I mean, just to piggyback on the idea before we move on, there was some news in last week's show that we shared about was it Joe Bennett, the artist on the Immortal Hulk, letting the cat out of the bag that Immortal Hulk is going to end with 50 issues, and I was of the opinion that wow, 50 issues is a really good run for for a book that has maintained essentially a core creative team of Al Ewing and Joe Bennett with fill-in artists and maybe like a fill-in writer here and there for like a crossover issue, but otherwise that's a pretty good run. So who's the creator on this? Is it Venditti?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't know how long he's been writing Justice League. I don't know if he has like a
He
big
took
client.
over for Snyder.
Oh, okay. So he's been on it for a while then. Snyder's been off for a little while.
I think
it hadn't been that long.
James Tynion the Fourth, I think, took over first.
Oh, immediately.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Venditti came in.
All right. So who knows what kind of plans he has? Maybe he's just starting to get his feet wet. I don't know. But all I meant when I brought that up is that I guess for as much as we want these kind of less involved stories, part of us still wants that like epic run. As long as it's epic, as long as it's something that's worth following, we're willing to stick through. Whatchamacallit, Jason Aaron's Thor, through its ups and downs and character changes. I stuck through that whole thing and it was worth it for me. But not everyone's going to be able to do like a 9-year run on a book. So
yeah, and it's still not. I mean, it was even if you jump in 4 issues, you still get. I think the last issue felt mostly like a filler issue, where it was basically just them fighting a bunch of angry Amazonians, just trying to get to that gateway to hell. So, right. I mean, it was an issue that was just pretty much like a bunch of Amazon warriors going, "We hate men." And there's this other man that came through and they go, "Yeah, we're trying to find that man." And then the Spectre, power comes over them. And then they're like, "But we hate everybody. Spectre's right." And then they all just get into a giant fight. And then at the last page, they pop through and find Jim Corrigan. So you still get that, issue that where it's just like, okay, yeah, like you don't really need the dialogue. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. And then you're done. So that still happens from time to time.
I gotcha. All right. Well, it sounds like we're done with Justice League number 47. So,
what's next?
We are. I believe since I guess we're on the DC train, you guys have one in common.
Batman number 93. It's my only other DC book.
So go for it.
This subverted my expectations.
Okay, how so? You thought it was gonna suck, and it actually was halfway decent.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Okay, because I know that that's kind of like your attitude with the Tinian run so far on this.
Well, not so much. Like I won't say it sucks, especially compared to what it came out of. But it has been fairly bland. I felt for a long time. You had a lot of his story had been like, hey, there's gears turning, and you're just waiting for the machine to get into place,
right.
And we're finally getting to the point now at the end of this issue, which of course we don't want to spoil, but you get to the end of this issue and like stuff has fallen into place now. And so it's like, where do you go from here in the next issue type of situation. But I didn't expect, like I knew that they're putting banners on these books like Road to Joker War. Joker War's coming. And you read through these other books and there's ads in the middle of Justice League that say Joker War is coming. And, you're reading Nightwing and on the top, Road to Joker War. So you know that there's this Joker War thing that's going to be coming. So Joker is somehow involved in the story, that it's going to be, a bigger deal. I just didn't expect how big of a deal Joker was going to be in this particular story. And I expected Punchline, this being her third appearance, I didn't expect as much out of the character, I guess. I expected it to be just a lot more of, here she is, and bang bang and grabs the stuff, and then she's gone, and that's it. Because that's what they tend to do when they introduce these characters. They tend to just kind of drop them in there. They disappear for a while, and then they come back as something, like the big reveal for something else later on. Whereas in this, she really was the henchman or henchwoman, whatever, the second in command, the Riker, if you will, to Joker. So it was just, there was a lot more going on here than I expected, and I hate Harley Quinn. I really hate Harley Quinn. I don't really
the
care
animated version.
Every version of Harley Quinn I don't care for. And I don't really care about Catwoman. And so what happens to both of those characters in this book, I was fine. I was like, hey, all right, that's cool. Even though it's not going to last, obviously, but still, I was pleasantly surprised when I got to the end of this issue.
I mean, what I haven't been reading this that closely. So at the end of the last issue, this character with the white hooded, like kind of a full face mask with a D on his face.
The designer
turns out, and without spoiling too much, turns out that he's not behind everything, despite the fact that, you would think that this would be his designed action against Batman. It turns out he's not the one behind it all. He's not the one pulling the strings. And we won't spoil exactly what happens at the end of this issue, but it seemed like everything that had been leading to this, especially from the Catwoman side, finally made sense after issue upon issue of not really understanding where that part was going.
Right.
And I'm not really all that keen on Punchline. I think it's a pretty, at this point, just a flat character. There's not much to this character at this point. So
I mean, I don't exactly understand what her gimmick is necessarily supposed to be, other than like she works at Hot Topic, it looks like. But other than that, she at least seems a lot more intelligent and capable, and a lot more involved than I guess I was expecting. I was expecting, because Harley was always really much more, and they even discuss it in here, that Harley was always much more of trying to change Joker, and so not really going along with everything, but just kind of fell for him and whatever. Where she is of sound mind, but also as twisted in her ways, and so there's room to develop a character there, even though we haven't really seen anything there. At least I can see where they can work something. They can build from it, I guess, from what we have seen of her. But again, I don't know what the everybody's got a costume. Everybody can't be Kite Man and Condiment Man, and I understand that. Not everybody gets to be as awesome as Stilt Man, but at least everybody has some sort of like gimmick, and her gimmick is, I don't know, that she's an emo teen. I don't understand, but anyway, but otherwise, like I said, the story had a lot more going on than what I was expecting, and I guess part of it is the story starts and Batman's kind of explaining he figured everything out, but then as it goes along, he kind of explains how, even though that was the original idea, he's now realized that the plan has changed.
Right.
And he's explaining the change in the plan, and then you find out that there were more changes in the plan that he hadn't even figured out yet. And so, again, like I said, it just puts everything in a place where you're like, I don't even know exactly where they're going to follow up with this going forward. And we've gotten some, hints. We've gotten some little tidbits of news here and there about certain things going on in the DC universe with certain characters. So we kind of have an idea of some basic things that are going to be happening. But as far as turn the page, go to the next issue, where exactly is this story going to go from here? It's really tough to say. And that I enjoy. Good. I enjoy not knowing exactly, not having everything telegraphed out precisely, 3 issues in advance.
Right. I mean, I definitely appreciated the swerve, the swerve in the story.
And it made sense. That was the other thing.
Right.
Like you could go, you could go to that swerve and it works. It wasn't completely out of left field. It wasn't, like it wasn't a completely illogical move just for the sake of swerving you, like we've seen in some other things recently. This made sense once you think about it and you dig, an extra layer deeper.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, I agree with you in that regard. I just felt like maybe we're just getting old. I was just like, again, really? You know what I mean? I was just like, oh, okay, so it's a slightly different take on whatever plot might be being hatched. But again, it's this character. But we'll see where this is going, because this is actually, I think, a relatively novel concept in the long history between this character and Batman. So
yeah, it's interesting. It was good. I enjoyed it.
All righty, sounds good. Okay.
What's next?
Well, let's see. Let's pull up one more book here, and then I guess we can go to rapid fire. So, Immortal Hulk it is. So I kind of skimmed it, so I'm letting Age of 70 kind of take the bulk of this one. But basically, this is a leader-focused issue. Right. I don't know if you're keeping up with this. I know you said you were trying to catch up, Dirt. So I don't know if you have or not.
No. I mean, I'm
You're that far behind?
I think the last one I read was like 18.
Oof.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought about getting back to this, eventually during the quarantine and everything, but I picked up just so much other stuff, and it just fell to the back burner. It's like I enjoyed the book, but I was more interested in some of the other stuff that was going on.
I think once this is done, you will benefit from being able to read it all in one sitting. Either in a collective format, or just because all the issues are out and we have all of our review copies available for you to read. But in very broad strokes, this issue, as Roddykat mentioned, is Sam Stern centric, very leader centric, because he has been revealed at least as part of this overarching plot by the entity. What is it? The entity below. I forget what they're called.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And essentially what we get here is an issue that helped us catch up with Sam Stearns, because we really haven't seen that much of him. I believe the last time we saw him was during the Weapon H book. I believe he was part of that, if I'm not mistaken. But that was definitely, sometime last year, maybe even in 2018, the Weapon H book that came out. I believe the leader was a part of that. So it's been a while since we've seen him come back, to the forefront. We find out that one of the aspects of gamma radiation that Al Ewing has explored throughout this book, the series, applies to Sam Stearns as well. And we kind of see the many deaths, the many depowerings of Sam Stern that have gone on over the years, and how the character has made his way back and kept a running log of everything that's happened, be it through his own special leader technology or through a classic typewriter. And essentially, without getting into too much of what happens at the end, we find that the leader has inserted himself into the story involving the entity down on the entity underneath it all. He who was underneath it all, I think is what it is. So he's not part of the initial storyline. He inserts himself partway through and makes himself part of it. So it's an interesting twist. It's an interesting, I hate to use the word again, but it's an interesting swerve for the character and for the story.
it kind of is and it isn't though, because if you think about the leader in the past, like he have thought of himself as a bigger than life character in historically, and this and even in the outset of this is not outside the realm of possibilities for something he would be thinking himself as, you know. So this is kind of more like, yeah, in the course of the story, definitely like there were some things that's like, this is like you said, it's quite interesting and a bit of a swerve. But like the where he gets to at the end of this doesn't feel like it's that outside of the realm of possibilities for what he would think, you know, to be.
Oh, I mean,
this.
that's why he fits right in. That's the thing.
Mhm.
You know, it's because of the supernatural element to the story. I think that's really what I was getting at. There's been such a supernatural element to the story since the beginning, and to see the leader kind of insert himself into the story from the scientific, from his scientific background and his perspective, and how the aspect that they're exploring in the Immortal books about the effects of gamma radiation on these humans. It's kind of interesting to see him be inserted into the story at this point, and knowing that there's 16 issues left.
Right.
I'm still eager to see how this plays out and what role he has to play.
Right. Like, and I feel like we've said, and even in the past on this book, it's like, the leader has to show up at some point, and now finally has come through. And I'm thinking, I don't know who else would be left outside of, I think, that either hasn't been mentioned or hasn't shown up in some kind of, proper way in the course of the story. And like you said, we don't have that much left. So I'm kind of curious as well about how that's going to play out, and if anybody else is going to get introduced or have some kind of significance to this. Because pretty much most of the major players has kind of been done, with the exception of, like, She-Hulk maybe has shown up like for a couple of issues with the Avengers, but outside of that, nothing any more prominent.
Right. What I was joking about in my notes is that, reading this issue makes me reconsider grabbing the new Marvel Legends figure of the leader that was just released with the Gamerverse wave. It's not the latest wave, but it's probably the one that's the most recent on the shelves. And I kept thinking about, whether or not I really wanted him. And then I was Googling the top, let's say like the top 10, top 15 Hulk villains. And there's really not, he's actually got one of the shallower villain, rogues gallery. There's really not as, he doesn't have that deep of a rogues gallery roster. And apparently we're having communications issues.
No, it's all good. It's good. Don't worry about it.
The Skype crashed on me, so if you were watching the video feed, you just saw the still image of me sitting there just staring off into space for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That's because that was the last frame of the video it was holding on to. So I had to relaunch Skype and jump back in, and I was trying very subtly to just be like, hey, it crashed, and now I'm back. And instead it pops up with that blink and makes a loud noise, and everybody stops talking and starts looking at the little chat window.
Yeah, what's
And
happening?
so it just kind of
Live recordings, folks. Live recordings. It's all good.
Right.
I will not be editing that out.
That's funny. So anyway, just to wrap up the conversation on this, or at least in terms of my urge to get a Marvel Legends figure, because I'm
like
always
it
trying to
wouldn't take
curb
much.
that urge.
Yeah.
Right? Always trying to curb that urge. Check the completionist tendency, right? But yeah, no, the Hulk really doesn't have that deep rogues gallery roster. I mean, we've already seen the Abomination in some form. We've already seen, now we've seen the leader. We have already seen Zax.
Or the UFOs. Yeah.
Wait, have we seen the UFOs?
No,
already?
I said we haven't. No, I don't think we have.
Right. So the UFOs is one group. Tyrannus, like that underground dude. He might be one, but there's really not that deep a roster. And I kept thinking, well, if I ever wanted to do like a little diorama of the Hulk versus somebody, it would most often be like the Hulk versus some heroes, because he just doesn't have that deep a roster of villains unless I'm willing to shell out some dough for an Abomination Build-A-Figure. That's about it.
Is there a bomb figure? Because you could do the animated version, like the Agents of Smash.
That's true. In the previous iteration of Marvel Legends, they did, but under Toy Biz, but not under Hasbro.
Hmm.
I'll just have to be patient. But like I said, other than maybe dishing out some dough to get a completed, or the rest of the parts that I need for the Abomination Build-A-Figure, there's not going to be anyone to have him go up against. Although I'm definitely tempted to. Now that I'm doing scenes from comic books, I'm like, oh. There's one of my old favorite comics from when I was a kid was Hulk 300, where it's essentially like mindless Hulk against the entirety of New York City, and like it's a great issue. You guys should go back and read it. It's actually pretty cool.
Shout out to Marvel Legend. I mean, it's Marvel Unlimited, which is not a sponsor, but just saying, it's a good
Exactly.
service.
Exactly. All right.
All right.
So
yeah. I guess unless anybody else got a book they want to really throw about and talk about, we can go ahead to rapid fire.
you good?
Nobody? Okay.
Everybody
Cool.
good?
Spin it.
I'll spin it up.
And I guess I'll go and get mine out of the way real quick because I've only got a couple. I know Dirt's read this one, so feel free to chime in. Transformers versus Terminator #2. So yeah, it's the year 1984, and I'm not gonna continue doing that voice because I have been watching a good bit of Transformers G1 fairly lately. But so yeah, this takes place back in 1984 when, like, at the beginning, basically, of the animated series, or I guess the comics are the same, like, whatever. But basically, the Terminator has come back in time to kill all the Cybertronians because that is his mission. And in this this issue, we find out what the whole of that mission was, but not without Megatron waking up first and making his proclamations and wanting to destroy the the Autobots before they wake up, but then the Terminator just happens to come in and put a kink in the plan and is surprisingly effective against these giant the 3 or 4 giant Transformers that happen to be awake and are going against them until, of course, Soundwave, being the only competent person in the group, is the one that stops them briefly. But outside of that, it was like, okay, yeah. So that happens, and lo and behold, Sarah kind of, has a stake in turning the tide, weirdly enough, of the situation in a couple of different respects, and even brokers a truce between the Terminator and the Autobots to go after the to go after the Decepticons. But outside of that, it was a fairly decent issue, of what it's going to be.
It seemed like when the Terminator was recapping the history of what happened to lead to him coming back in time to stop everything, it seemed like what had happened was the Decepticons woke up, destroyed the Autobots, then started to take over the Earth.
Right. That's what it seemed
And
like.
by the Terminator being there, he has now changed time because Sarah Connor accidentally wakes up the Autobots.
Mm-hmm.
And so just that involvement in the whole thing has changed whatever the future was going to be. So now the question is there any fate other than what they make themselves, or whatever that line was from Terminator 2? It's okay, but it's the Terminator is way too talky. Like, he just chats like way too much for being a Terminator. Like, the whole point of the Terminator was it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who didn't speak very good English, so they had him speak 3 or 4 words at a time, and that was it. Like, that was the point.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's
files.
yeah, this guy's just chit chatting away. And,
I mean,
and he's telling stories. And,
right. I feel like that's probably more in service. Obviously, that is more in service of trying to make him a part of the book as a character, as opposed to just being there, in his normal thing. So yeah, it doesn't seem right, quote unquote, if you think about how the movies go in that respect. But it is a different medium where they had to they felt that they had to kind of do something along those lines to make him more talky. It is kind of weird though.
I did like the artwork though. I do like who is the artist on this?
Oh yeah, I forgot to look myself.
Barber.
No, Barber
That-
is the one. John Barber is the the co-writer.
Waltz Milne. Who is this? All right, now I gotta.
Now you're making me look.
Oh, art by Alex Milne.
Okay,
Okay, there you go.
there you go. Mystery solved. Yay! Good job, Gumshoes.
And so like he draws the Transformers really well, which a lot of artists can't. A lot of times, and then he also draws the people really well. I'd say Sarah Connor doesn't exactly look like Linda Hamilton, but he gets the Terminator down pretty well.
Yeah. It's a close
and
amalgamation.
all the well, and as I say, all the artwork is easy to follow. Like at no point, usually when you have these things and there are these battles going on, and you've got things that are 4 stories tall, and normal size humans shooting at each other, it's kind of hard to follow the action. But he does a pretty good job of keeping everything together and making it easy to follow. And she accidentally bumps into the machine that activates Optimus Prime, and it makes sense the way he draws everything. Just at no point are you sitting there going, wait, where did this guy come from? Why did this just happen? Why did that just blow up? It's like everything flowed and made sense with the artwork. So that was one thing that I noticed when reading it. Like, wow, he's actually a really good storyteller. Huh.
Have either of you guys read the previous issue? Is it the same artist?
Yeah, I believe it is. I don't remember.
I read the previous book, but I don't I don't remember offhand, but I think it was.
I was about to say, this is really sharp. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, even with the current Transformers book, like this is even more sharper than that. So I was actually like, okay, yeah, this is actually good. I'm actually looking in that last issue to see if it's the same person. But while I'm doing that,
Carlito Q in the chat is saying he's still recovering from Batman and Ninja Turtles.
I see. I was going to address that too because so if you think that's blowing your mind, my guy, there have been. This is not the first off the wall crossover that is happened in the last few months, much less the last couple of years. Like there's been Transformers versus Star Trek. There's Power Rangers versus Justice League. There's been
Green Lantern Star Trek they did.
Green Lantern Star Trek from years ago. Yeah, like there's been a few either Star Trek crossovers and or Transformers crossover. Like there was even Transformers Ghostbusters just happened a few months ago. So
well, and then they did the Ghostbusters, like the movie Ghostbusters, so the animated Ghostbusters,
right?
all
They
met
basically
each other.
yes, they
crossover.
basically did a multiverse of all the Ghostbusters characters in a crossover.
And the He-Man multiverse one,
one just ended. Yep. So yeah, there is no shortage of crazy behind concept. Like I said, the Power Rangers Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is still going on right now, which I have not read any of it, but I'm hearing some weird things. And that Batman Ninja Turtle one is like the 3rd one of those, I believe. That's right.
Maybe. Well,
I know there's 3 of them. There were 3 of them. I can't remember this.
but wasn't one of them like the animated series with the animated turtles?
Probably. I don't know. I hadn't really kept up with them, but I know there's been a couple of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been no shortage of crazy crossovers in the last forever, much less in the last couple of years. But with that, yes, Power Rangers. Yeah, Power Rangers got a book now, or has had a book for the last year or two. And he's like,
Had 2 books for a while.
Yeah, and the 2nd book just ended. Matter of fact, issue 50 of the Power Rangers just came out this week. When it's X-Men Sailor Moon. You know what? That would probably be something they would do. Don't even trip. But anyway, to get back on to what we're talking about here. So Transformers Terminator 2 was a thing. I didn't actually check and see about the thing, but as we're going on with the next books that actually I'm leading on, we will do that. Green Lantern 80th Anniversary 100-page Super Spectacular. Say that 5 times fast. So I actually enjoyed it. So what this was pretty much there's been a couple of 80th anniversary, anthology, not necessarily anthology books, but kind of super specials that DC's been doing for various characters lately. This is probably the only one I've actually read, now that I think about it. And it's just various stories with various Green Lanterns. Some of them actually are fairly decent. Like the Alan Scott one, that was the first, was pretty good one. The one written by Charlotte McDuffie, Dwayne McDuffie's wife, was actually a pretty good one. The one even where three of the lanterns meet up and go to see one of the fourth ones without spoiling that one. That one was actually kind of pretty good. And I don't even like the fourth character all that much, but that's usually that. But yeah, like I said, there was a couple of good solid stories in there with various lanterns. Current various lanterns. The only one that pretty much didn't have a story was like the Teen Lantern from Young Justice, and that other one from that graphic novel that just came out, from Green Lantern Legacy. But they have like
the Far Sector Lantern.
The Far Sector Lantern also also hasn't had one. But those are all more newer characters, and not necessarily saying that's the why, but why they didn't have anything in the. But however, they are shown because they are in between each story there's pieces of art from each of the Green Lanterns. From various artists. That's some good stuff also, and they are there. They at least show up there. But yeah, but like I said, it's cool. It's a cool thing. Like and the stories go by. They're only a couple of pages at a time. They go by pretty quick, and some of them are probably more significant than others, including that Denny O'Neil one. But go ahead.
I was just gonna say I have a really hard time recommending these for people and justifying the price tag on them, because these are all basically like the backup filler stories that you would get in an annual. None of them are good enough to be the lead story. So you're basically getting it's like when you see those this is the perfect analogy. When you see those DVDs in like Family Dollar and they say like Ernest from like Ernest Goes to Camp or whatever, but you look at them closely and you realize it's just the commercials. It's like a collection of just the commercials that he did for like an hour. You're not even getting a movie or anything. You're not even getting like Ernest plays basketball or whatever any of those movies were. Like all you're getting are just like him talking about Dr. Pepper and Lewis Ford for an hour long. Like that's what these things are. It's like you're kind of like I'm kind of amused, but then it's like you read this story and it's like, okay, well that story was kind of dumb, and then you read the next one and you're like, okay, well that was interesting, I guess. And then here's one, Kyle Rayner doesn't understand why he's a Green Lantern and still doesn't know where he fits in the DC universe. Neither do I. Okay, let's, it's like a bunch of these things were just like, they were there and you can read them and the characters made an appearance, but at the end of the day, it's like I got done reading it going, the one story of them meeting in the bar would probably be the only one I would ever revisit at some point in the future. Like that's something they would probably collect when they do like Green Lantern 100 years in 20 years, and they do one of those hardcovers. That story will probably be in there, but that's probably the only thing out of this book that's going to make it into something like that. Everything else is it just feels like pages some editor had sitting in their desk, just to fill space at some point in the future. So, and especially with the price tag on these things being so expensive, I just really can't justify these things existing the way they do.
I don't know. I feel differently about a couple of more than probably you do. Definitely that one that you mentioned was one that would probably keep up. But I think there was a couple of more in there that feels like they were good starters to something that could go on to something else. Like especially like that Alan Scott one. That kind of Rainer could have would, but I doubt it. Like I said, the Charlotte McDuffie one, that one seemed like it was almost set like during Justice League Unlimited, except for the fact that it's a different Hawk Girl. But that's a whole that's
which story was that? Oh, was that the one with Jon Stewart?
Yeah, Jon Stewart and Hawk Girl.
Yeah, like again, that was okay, but like it really didn't. At the end of the day, it's not really a story that sticks with you for any particular reason.
But it could have been the start of something, which was my point. Like, yeah, probably that one, whatever. And the Denny O'Neil one was probably one that feels kind of like it was, and it was still good, mind you, but it was kind of what you were saying about stuff that was kind of, you know, holdover materials that wasn't used. That one kind of feels like one of them, but it was still kind of pointing, you know, there was still a point to it.
That one almost felt like he's heard people for years and years and years and years talk about the hard traveling heroes and how they get their hands dirty and how they're, you know, they're not afraid to just punch the guy in the face and whatever. And he was like, you guys missed the whole point. So, you know, he wrote this thing and didn't know where it was ever going to end up, didn't know when it was ever going to be used, but just had to write this thing that, you know, it's like, okay, here's where they have the chill out moment where they take some time off and cool their heads a little bit.
Right.
Like, you know, just trying to address that, you know, maybe a little bit, which again, it's interesting, but now that I've read it, it's like, okay, but I'm never going to go, hey, remember that story where Green Lantern takes a month off to read a book? I want to go read that one again. Like, that's not, you know.
I think it probably just carries, you know, and I guess just to sort of wrap the discussion on this book, I think that the Denny O'Neil story carries a little bit more weight now that he's passed, you know, and it was just a coincidence that his last published work is in this Green Lantern issue.
Right, and I think there's an article in in the news section about that later on. But yeah, how much was the book? Because didn't have that.
$10, right?
Yeah, $9.99.
All of those,
yeah,
and all of those 100 pages are that much.
Those anniversary ones, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I see that as being a hard proposition.
Well, yeah, especially when you get those Walmart ones that are 100 pages and they're $5.
Right.
You know, even though it's got some reprint material in it, you're still getting, you know, several issues of material.
Right. But if you're a fan of the Green Lantern Corps and you know, hey, you're in it like that, go for it. I guess if you wanna. All right, my last one. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's. I was about to say that you hit the nail on the head. You have to be a real fan of the character to really invest in these 80 issues.
Yeah. My last one is, and without spoiling it for PC_Dirt, Spider-Ham #5, and all I will say is that it was a pretty good ending to the silliness that the story was. I mean, the Spider-Ham. What are you expecting? It was drenched in silliness.
Right.
I would say, because we didn't talk about last issue, I think the last issue was if last issue was, well, if not last issue, the issue 3, and I can't remember if I had read it then. I'm pretty sure I didn't, because I did say earlier I hadn't read it, but issue 3 would have probably been like a potential click of the week for me, but we didn't talk about it at the time. But yeah, like I said, without belaboring the point, it was like it ended, or let's say it ends pretty well for what you would expect this to have, you know, because it could have gone a couple different ways. And
I haven't been keeping up with the series. I think I read the first, you know, kind of turned off, but I read this and I kind of appreciated the shots they took from current animated shows.
Yes.
They took shots of, so I was like, oh, shots fired, man. Shots fired. Yeah, I also appreciated the ending. I might go back now and read the series in full. But yeah, I like the last issue of this miniseries.
Yeah. And that is it for me. So whoever wants to take it next.
I will go through. I think I've got the most left, so I'm going, or maybe PC on Twitter has the same amount left.
I just have 2.
Oh, okay. You want to do your 2, and then I'll just run through.
Sure. Justice League Dark, number 23. Okay, so basically what has been going on is you have every character except Swamp Thing appearing in Justice League Dark for the last 2 issues. And then in this one, they tease a long missing character from the DC universe is going to reappear. And you wonder, who could it be? Turns out it's exactly who you think it is. It's the one who had the great TV show on the DC app that was canceled. Um, and so he is back now in the DC universe, and Justice League Dark brought him back. And it's one of those stories where they really kind of played with the um, you, everything that goes on with Swamp Thing has always played with comics. Whatever, it doesn't matter which writer has been doing it, they always play with the idea of, how do you bring a character back from the dead, and what is reality, and how do you play with these storytelling concepts, and there's just a lot of weird stuff that they're always allowed to do because it's a guy who grew out of the goo of the swamp and became a monster thing. Um, so basically, Swamp Thing's back. It was a fun story. It gets a little weird at times, but overall, it's definitely, I think, worth reading. It's a fun. If you want to, read. If you're like, oh, I like Swamp Thing, I want to know how he comes back. Just go back like maybe 2 issues. Go back to maybe 21. Just read 21, 22, 23, and you'll get the stuff you need for the story to make sense. But it's a fun little romp. Again, nothing too special and amazing about it, but it was fun and entertaining. Let's see. Flash 756 was also the other book, and Flash, again, we were talking before about books that just kind of keep going on and on and on and on and on and on. And Joshua Williamson, who's been writing Flash for many years now, he has this habit of just layering stories on top of stories on top of stories on top of stories, and it's almost impossible for new readers to dive in because the way he links things together. He just finished another time-traveling story, rewrote part of the history of the Flash universe, brought back a character from the dead, who, of course, always comes back from the dead, and then now a character that had been dead and brought back died again at the hands of the character that was dead and was brought back again. And so now Flash feels guilty about all of that too. So basically, you've got Reverse Flash is back, and he's putting together his own Reverse Flash family to take on the Flash and the Flash family. And so Flash basically tries to tell the Flash family to get lost in order to save themselves because he doesn't know what's coming from Reverse Flash, making a Reverse Flash family. But the Flash family says that they won't leave Flash's side because they are the Flash family. And now it's getting ready for the big battle between the Reverse Flash family and the Flash family. So it's good, it's fun. There's a lot of stuff there, but man, you gotta, like, if you wanna get into the story, go back 5 years. That's you're gonna have to. You're pretty much gonna have to go back to maybe even like the start of Rebirth. I don't know. And start reading from there. But I mean, it's good stuff, but it gets pretty thick. Yeah.
Pretty dense.
Yeah.
I believe I have seen. I saw it in one article. Zoom's people, known as the Legion of Zoom.
Yes.
So I don't know
that was a tagline. He didn't actually call them that, but that was like coming next issue, the Legion of Zoom.
Right. So they should keep it. Might as well. Anyway.
I'd buy that shirt.
Is that it?
That's it. I'm done.
All
right. So I will pick up the baton and start with Empyre Avengers number 0. This is a potential click of the week for me. Damn it, I knew I should have read the Celestial Madonna and the Celestial Quest stories while we were home in quarantine.
Not like we didn't have it slated, but hey, who knew?
It's on our list, but we decided to jump around. Our initial plan was to try to prepare for Empyre, but the longer quarantine dragged on, we kind of, decided to do other events and other stories. But now I'm curious to go back and read those, although Al Ewing does an excellent job of doing exposition / recap during the issue and in the and as part of the story, and it's it makes sense in a 0 issue. because it essentially gives the creative team an extra issue to tell the story that needs to be told to fill everyone in and get everyone up to date so that we're all on the same page coming in, even if you're, 16 years old picking this book up for the first time, or if you're like us old fogies who were still not old enough to read the Celestial Madonna story, and were only barely able to read the Celestial Quest stories because those are probably the only ones that came out while we were collecting. Um, the art is by the team from Hawks Pox, which is definitely welcome. It's pretty cool to see Pepe Larraz and Marte Gracia rock and roll on this. The art is great. It's very well staged. It's definitely cinematic, so it's pretty cool. It's an effective start to a big event. My only note is that it's strange that Iron Man is kind of gung-ho about everything, but when you read it, you'll know what I mean. Next up is Iron Man 2020 number 4. I mentioned this earlier. It's actually not bad for not having read the 2 prior issues. I did read through or skim through the first issue of this miniseries. I actually found that, of all things, this was a good jumping on point. And most everything is explained to a good degree, so a new reader isn't exactly lost already 4 issues into an event series. Also, I was very glad that the art was pretty sharp. I don't know if the artist on this has been the same artist that's been on every issue of the Iron Man 2020 miniseries, but it was pretty sharp and it definitely kept my attention. So I'm willing to stick with reading this event, maybe not the tie-in issues, but definitely this event to see how Slott wraps up this Iron Man 2020 issue. Next up for me is Marvel Snapshots, Captain America #1. This is part of a series of stories curated by the original creator behind Marvels, that is the writer behind Marvels, that is Kurt Busiek. In this issue, it's I think it's a DC writer who's working on this, Mark Russell. And the
Oh
artist
yeah,
is,
he was the one who did Wonder Twins, and there was another book, and Snagglepuss. Yeah.
okay. It's Mark Russell, and the art on this is by Ramon Perez. It's an interesting take on a young man's adventure in a neighborhood in New York City that is rarely visited by the heroes of the Marvel Universe. The South Bronx, South Bronx. Shout out to Boogie Down Productions and KRS-One. And what happens after the brief fallout from the Mad Bomb. That's an old school Jack Kirby story from Captain America and the Falcon, when it was a team, when that was the title of the book. When after the brief fallout from the Mad Bomb hits an already struggling neighborhood. Now the timeline in this is a little murky, obviously, because the original story was told in the 70s, the late 70s, early 80s, but it has Captain America in it, and depending on the sliding timeline, Cap doesn't get thawed out in the current Marvel timeline until after 9/11. So it's a little weird. Obviously Marvel's is kind of like that. It's not an Elseworlds thing, but it's meant to be kind of the old timeline before it started to slide. So that's how I think we're supposed to take it. Last for me is Thor #5, another potential click of the week. This is an outstanding issue. It's Donny Cates on script. It's Nick Klein on art. The Nick Klein art is appropriately epic. The revelations in this issue will have some impact on the Marvel Universe creation story for sure. Just to get everyone caught up on this, Thor is essentially teamed up with Galactus. He's acting as a herald of Galactus to forestall, I believe it's the Black Winter, but there's some interesting revelations in this issue that will complicate things moving forward. So I definitely like the epic cosmic scale that Donny Cates is on in this book. It is, it's definitely a good follow-up to what Jason Aaron did for Thor for all those years. So it's definitely pretty exciting. And
Cool,
that's
cool.
it for me.
Yeah, Mark Russell is more commonly known as a satirist and novelist prior to his work uh, with DC. But that is that. And I hear that Thor book is kind of there's definitely or this issues kind of has some far-reaching stuff. But we'll get to
Yep.
that in the news section. So clicks of the week.
Clicks of the week.
Everybody's
So
just
fun.
chomping at the bit to say their.
I thought maybe Tim threw in a click of the week. I was just checking our
No,
messages.
no, that was me. That was me asking him, and I should have done it earlier. But yeah,
So I've got a lot of choices. That's the thing. That's why I was hesitant to jump in and say what my click of the week is. I definitely have some strong contenders. I'm definitely leaning towards picking between the Empyre Avengers #0 because I thought it was such an effective opening issue to an event, and Thor #5 because it's just so we were joking about this, and I actually added this to my sound effect repertoire. Dirt.
Excellent!
It's kind of what you think when you're reading this, the Donny Cates Thor. So I don't know if you're into Thor at all. I definitely would recommend. It's only 5 issues in. If it doesn't seem like either of you have that much room in your reading list, but
Well, when I was on vacation, actually, I did buy the first issue. It was in one of those packs at like a Walmart,
right.
where they've got it shrink wrapped, so you could see like that. There was that, and there was a variant cover of Spider Woman, and then there was like 2 books in the middle that you couldn't tell what they were, and it was like $5 or whatever. And I was like, what the heck? I'll go ahead and buy it. But I haven't read it yet. I've got it sitting in the other room.
Got it. It's worth it. It's fun. It's fun.
I guess for me, I read a bunch of stuff this week, but only the 5 books that were actually for this week.
Right.
So of the ones that I actually read that were for this week, I would say probably I'm going to have to go with Batman, because it was probably the best story of the ones that were this week. Like, I enjoyed Justice League Dark quite a bit. The regular Justice League was pretty good too, but they weren't, these big epic things like the Batman story is actually turning into. Like I said, we've been waiting for something really to happen in Batman. It just seemed like for so long these gears were moving, but nothing was really happening. Nothing was getting anywhere. But now we finally got somewhere, and like I said, I'm desperate for that next issue now because that ending was so good. It was really not what I expected at all. So I'm going with Batman.
Okay. I'm still stalling. Do you have anything, Roddy?
Yeah, I think I'm close enough. I wanted to ask Dirt, I think I may have asked you this before, is Justice League Dark consistent? Like, has it been consistently decent? Because it's not the first time you've mentioned that one. I don't know.
Yeah, well, actually, I bought it when it first came out. I read like the first 2 or 3, and I just kind of gave up on it.
Oh, okay.
I think Tim was reading it regularly, but I kind of like, whatever. But because of the quarantine, whatever, I went back and I just bought, like a stack of them. Read like the last year's worth. Like, what is this, 23 or something that came out this week?
Yeah.
23 came out this week. So I think I read like 16 through 23 or something like that. So it definitely feels like it at least got a lot more interesting. I think the first one, the problem was that with Justice League Dark, because it deals with all the magic stuff and whatever, there's a lot of something happened. Why did it happen? Because of magic. And, it's like, how do we defeat this? Well, we go into the other realm. And then in the other realm, we have power. And then with the power in the other realm, we defeat bad guy. And it's just a lot of, you need to make something up. So we have magic, and magic can do whatever you want, But I feel like it really focused a lot more. They actually did one of the storylines several issues ago. They were talking to an older magical being, and he's like, well, I know what my powers are whatever. And they're like, well, no, because your powers are magic, and magic changes with the perception of reality. And as reality, as people look at the universe differently, and as they interact with the universe differently, reality changes, and with the way reality changes, your magical powers change. And I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting take on that whole thing. And so, yeah, it definitely got a lot more interesting and got away from what I felt like it was really doing a lot at the beginning. That was just like weird stuff happens, magic. And that was its crutch at the beginning.
Sure. Gotcha.
All right, all right.
Cole, as you were going through that, I just realized that I forgot to mention a book in rapid fire. And while it is not my click of the week, I will briefly say that Teen Titans number 42, I actually did read that. And this was supposedly a Titans No More, Teen Titans No More issue, but except for it's not. Like, we kind of start off with Damien, uh, in basically, I want to say that's probably him thinking about Alfred because it's catching up with the whole Alfred thing. Now that he's no longer here, so the crux of the parts of the book is like Damien thinking about what Alfred would do in relation to, well, the team had broke up last issue because, you know, of all the things that's been happening. But they get back together in this issue because one of their old enemies has been found dead, and they felt some sort of responsibilities to find out why. So it puts them, the team, kind of back together again, while still saying, well, we're not really a team anymore, but you know, but we're going to probably get back together as a team because of this whole thing we're going through now. So yeah, they're on this quest to kind of find out, you know, what happened to this person that they didn't actually finally deal with. And also, Kid Flash is trying to tell Red Arrow his feelings for her, but it's always coming at the wrong time. So who knows if that's ever gonna happen? But yeah, this is pretty much, you know, hey, the team broke up. We came back for this mystery and go on to the next arc. But my click of the week is probably going to be, I'm just going to go ahead and set it for Spider-Ham number 5. Why not?
All right. And I will wrap up with my click of the week. I've settled on Empyre Avengers number 0. I really like the fact that in very, in very brief terms, the creative team got us up to speed on some stuff that happened many moons ago with regards to the events that would be leading up to this change in the Kree-Skrull relationship. So I'm going to go with Empyre Avengers number 0 with Thor number 5 a supremely close second.
Alrighty, yeah. Shout out to the potential of Transformers versus Terminator, but I'm not expecting that one to go out, come out any better. All right, and with that, we are going to transition over to the news, and I'm thinking this is where we say goodbye to PC_Dirt.
For a while.
Yes, so I've jokingly
So
said
I know
before.
I haven't been very regular on the show with everything that's been going on, and now things are going to get even worse with my schedule. So things got weird with lockdown, and now as things are being unlocked, things are getting even weirder. So my schedule is getting even crazier, and so unfortunately that means that I'm going to be taking an extended. I'm going to be taking a Tim. I'll
No,
just put it
no.
that way. I'm gonna be
Shots
taking a Tim.
fired. Shots fired.
But I'll still be hanging out. I'll still be in the background. I'll still be sliding notes in class when the teacher isn't looking, and seeing what I can get away with. So anyway, we'll still be sharing books back and forth and discussing a few things here and there.
I was about to say, throwing clicks of the week when you have the chance.
Yep.
Yeah, when you come on, you let us know when you can come on again. That's, you know.
Yep. Well, and my hope is, like, there's sometimes we may get done early. You know, sometimes they may want to do it at like 4 p.m. instead of doing it at 8 o'clock at night because of some other thing in somebody else's schedule and whatever. So if things, happen to work out, I may just pop in at the last moment. You might see me just appear out of nowhere. But we'll see what happens.
So there you go, folks. We ran through our allotment of dirt, and now he is saying adieu.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Later. And now we will go on into the news, but first, an ad read, sir.
first ad read of the night. I forgot to tell you which one I was going to do first.
Fine.
I'm doing Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to cabernet to torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your taste and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink Wines through CSPN. Do it today. Now we get into the news.
Yes. Oh man, I really need to work on a transition that has the Comic Book Chronicles logo coming in as a back signal or something. That would be dope. If anybody knows anything about OPS transitions, please holler at me. Anyway, so cinematic news as we do every week, and we start off with Marvel casting Death Native American hero for Disney Plus series. So it sounds like, see, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is looking for a deaf female actor who is also Native American, First Nation, Indigenous, or Latinx for a role in an upcoming Disney Plus series. So what's up, Echo?
Possibly.
According to Daniel Richtman, the character's name is Malia. She is described as an independent, athletic, and bright 20-something-year-old. The character is set to appear in an MCU series that is filming this fall, which kind of lets out like Falcon and Winter Soldier and a couple of the other, and I think WandaVision maybe, but there's a couple of other ones according to this article. But while only the first name of the character has been confirmed, Richtman believes Malia is the hero Echo, as I've just stated. So that'll be dope. And maybe we'll even get an Echo series coming out of it. Because I don't even know where she is at this point. Like, I know didn't she die at one point?
No, she's working with the Daughters of Liberty.
Oh, okay. So she's in Captain America. Okay. Okay, sweet. So there we go. Something potential break up to it. But yeah, according to this article, it says that, yeah, the fall timeline rules out Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and Loki, which leaves possibilities of Hawkeye, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, and Ms. Marvel series. And out of those series, I can only see the first two, and more specifically Moon Knight, as probably being the more likely prospect for it. But who's to say?
Considering that they're introduced in Daredevil, I wonder if that's how they bring Daredevil to you as a guest.
Yeah, that is also a possibility. Yeah, since that all happened. So who knows? We will. It says something like November 16th is when schedules. Oh wait, it says of the 4 shows, only Moon Knight has a start date for production. It's scheduled to begin filming on November 16th of this year. So there you go. Moving right along.
All right, next up, of Shield, Empyre has opened up about the return of Daniel Sousa. And my audio's. I heard it happening too. I'll just work right through it. I hope it clears up soon. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Enver Jokat up about the return of Daniel Sousa and explained how Carter's endgame arc made the Paris time Agent Carter even more bittersweet. He thought it was a way of ending their story. Jokat told him, and as he said before, he thinks that it actually makes the romance between Daniel and Peggy much more bittersweet.
Yeah, so if you remember Agent Carter, you know, he was kind of pining for her, and it seemed like something was going away, but it didn't apparently. Well, according to Incame, it did not end up that way. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and yes, he is on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. During their time jump right now, which is, I believe, leads into the next story, which is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. moves up the MCU timeline. So this is a spoiler warning for current episodes of, or the current episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I have yet to see. But, and because I'm a couple of issues behind, episodes, I'm a couple of seasons behind now that I think about it. But yeah, so Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. took a time jump. They were basically almost Legends of Tomorrow style, jumping around time, I think going forward in time, or they went back in time to the beginning of S.H.I.E.L.D., and now they're kind of slowly going forward, and it sounds like Sousa, the aforementioned Sousa, came with them, according to the trailer. But, so director Alfonso Mack McKenzie, yeah, I don't know when Mack became the director, but hey, there you go, that makes sense. And his team found themselves in 1973 in New York City. 1973 being a very good year, I would say. Some would say New York is a good city. It's full of possibilities for the Marvel Universe in this regard. And they tried to do some things, and apparently, actually, I'm going to go ahead and take this next story because it definitely has something to do with that. Because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. may have just saved an Avenger. And if you think about the setting, you would think a certain particular one. It is not that one. So apparently, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. may have saved Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, years before he became an Avenger. And this is from the same episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that happened, and which involves the team, infiltrating Hydra, basically. You know how that, and a plot for Hydra to take out Bruce Banner as a child. Unlike a certain other plot that has been theorized in time, in times. So yeah, there you go. That is the thing that happened. Like I said, without going too much further in that, because again, I'm not caught up, and some people probably are not also. Next up.
Next up, Adam Driver's version of Kylo Ren's backstory is realistic and depressing. So, we know what the backstory of the character is, but apparently Adam Driver, in his quest to figure out the character's motivation, kind of created his own backstory for Kylo Ren. And according to Lev Grossman, the Magician's author and the writer of one of the early big previews of The Rise of Skywalker, Adam Driver told him that both Han Solo and Leia were way too self-absorbed and into this idea of themselves as heroes to really be attentive parents in the way a young and tender Kylo Ren really needed. There wasn't really that much of it in the movie, so he thinks that we have to assume his childhood sucked. Okay.
I mean, that's obviously not.
So one way to look at it?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. How some people wouldn't want to see Han and Leia, but at the same time, that actually, I feel like that could be something that could have actually borne out. It would make some sense. So, but hey, we don't know the real story. There you go. That's just it's an interpretation of the situation. So, next up, Transformers War for Cybertron Siege trailer announces July premiere on Netflix. So yay, that new that Transformers War for Cybertron thing is going to come out soon. Well, soon-ish, because apparently, according to this, if you're watching the video, you can see the tweet. The fight worth fighting. Transformers War for Cybertron Siege streams July 30th. So we gotta wait a whole another month and a little bit of change before we see that. And like I said, you can check out the trailer on this article in the show notes or on YouTube if you've, not YouTube, well, it's definitely on YouTube, but on Twitter or wherever you've seen this. Next.
All right, next up, the complete first season of DC Stargirl is coming to Blu-ray and DVD on September 29th, 2020 from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. You'll get all 13 episodes from the first season of the original series on DC Universe and the CW. It's priced to own at $24.98 for the DVD and $29.98 for the Blu-ray, which includes a digital copy. It's also available to own on digital via purchase from digital retailers. Okay.
Yeah. The funny part about it is, like, I keep seeing things about that show and totally keep forgetting to actually see what it's about to check it out. So, because it is out there. Anyway, next up, as soon as this thing loads, come on, be nice. Alrighty then, fine. The Flash movie could bring back Michael Keaton as Batman in a new alternative universe. So yeah, there's a potential chance that the Flash movie could bring back Michael Keaton as aging Batman, according to a new report. As reported by The Wrap, Keaton is currently in early talks with Warner Brothers to reprise his role he played in 1989's Batman and 1992's Batman Returns. There's still a chance that things will fall through, but if everything works out, Keaton will appear as Batman in an alternate universe accidentally created by The Flash. The Flash movie is loosely based on Flashpoint DC Comics storyline from 2011, so that should just be the start of the mind-bending dimension hopping. You know what? Why not? I wouldn't mind seeing. I don't know if Keaton has been thinking about trying to suit up again, but I'm down for it. It's pretty much my favorite Batman anyway.
I was about to say he's got bills to pay, so.
Well, I mean, sure, but I feel like Spider-Man set him up for fairly decently, or at least for temporary reasons. But you're right. You got to get them bills out there. So, and I feel like he's still working somewhere. We just don't know. Nothing's come out yet. But hey, it'll be good to see, regardless. Next up.
All right, next up in sad news, Joel Schumacher, costume designer turned director of films, including St. Elmo's Fire, The Lost Boys, and Falling Down, as well as 2 Batman films, died in New York City on Monday morning after a year-long battle with cancer. He was 80. So most comic fans will remember him as handling the initial 1989 Batman movie that started that particular franchise.
Wait, what?
Actually, not started. Handled the reins after Tim Burton left. That is. So the first movie by Schumacher, Batman Forever, starred Val Kilmer, Tommy Lee Jones, Jim Carrey, and Nicole Kidman, and that grossed more than $300 million worldwide.
Bat nipples.
That's right.
Yes. So yeah, these are the movies that people speak less of. The Batman movies specifically that people think less of, but sad to see him go. Apparently, wait, it says here that
I had Michael Keaton on the brain, so I was like, wait, he did the first ones. No, that was Tim Burton.
Right. Yeah, he was handed the reins of. But anyway, apparently, yeah, I did not know he was a costume designer. Did not also know that he was openly gay, and I don't know, according to this article, he introduced, kind of equated the two by introducing the bat nipples and leaning into the long-standing latent homoeroticism between the two characters. In 2006, Clooney told Barbara Walters that Clooney told Barbara Walters that he played Batman as gay, which I don't think came across like as well as he think it did.
Right.
But sure. Anyway, there is that, folks. Next up, oh yes. So the Secret Origins, the story of DC Comics documentary from 2010 is now on YouTube for you to check out freely. So you can go check it out. I don't think I did initially. I can't remember where this initially showed up.
I haven't watched it, so that's good news.
Yeah, exactly. The same here. And I feel like I've seen it or may actually own this on Vudu. Because it was something that they put out like as a standalone product and not with something. But nevertheless, it is out there, and you go check it out on YouTube as a whole. It's a whole hour and a half, and they've been putting out a lot of their old documentaries and whatnot on this. So we've been talking about them the last couple of weeks, or at least last week or so. But yeah, check it out. Next up.
All right. The Flash, Wonder Woman 1984, and every other DC Comics show and movie may not be participating in this year's San Diego Comic Con, which went virtual in the wake of the pandemic. That's because Warner Brothers is actually planning its own virtual fan experience centered around the comic book publisher's many properties for August. So on August 22nd at 10 a.m. Pacific time, that is uh, what would that be? 7 o'clock. Jeez. No, 10 a.m. No, so that would be 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Sorry, 2 o'clock Eastern time. 2 o'clock Eastern time. Warner Brothers will launch DC Fandom, a free global online event boasting big announcements and new content from across the DC's TV, movie, games, and comics, and only available for 24 hours, the studio announced Tuesday morning. As of right now, the massive endeavor will include the cast and creators of the following DC titles: Aquaman, The Batman, Batwoman, Black Adam, Black Lightning, DC Superhero Girls, DC's Legends of Tomorrow, DC Stargirl, Doom Patrol, The Flash, Harley Quinn, the Snyder Cut of Justice League, Lucifer, Pennyworth still around?
Apparently.
Shazam, The Suicide Squad, Supergirl, Superman and Lois, Teen Titans Go, Titans. What? There's a lot of freaking stuff. I didn't realize there's a lot of this stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
Titans, Watchmen, Young Justice, Outsiders, and of course Wonder Woman 1984. You can also expect some news about WB games and comics too. I didn't realize that DC had that much television and movie property ongoing and upcoming, and the
Well, I
only
mean,
thing that's not is Watchmen because
right.
that's firmly in the past unless they announce the sequel.
But I mean, some of that
Unless,
is actually old also, because like Young Justice Outsiders was last season of Young Justice. So it's stuff they're basically saying all the stuff they've had, of recent, not just stuff that's coming out, but stuff they've had in the past, just kind of letting folks know. So, but yeah, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, you will see the website for DC Fandom that I'm putting up, with some of the subsequent information that you can go check out for yourself. So
good.
here's another con we can go to this year. Yay!
Okay.
Next up, Scott Pilgrim may see new life in an animation. So apparently, Scott Pilgrim versus the World is about to turn 10, and we may soon see a return to it in a whole new way. In a new oral history of the film, director Edgar Wright mentioned, "Oh, I hate autumn playing stuff. Good gosh." Mentioned that there are rumblings about continuing the franchise in animation. There are some plans, and there's nothing official yet. And there are some plans to revisit the material in an animation way. Wright said, "We've been talking to Brian Lee O'Malley, the creator of Scott Pilgrim, and Jared LaBeouf, the executive producer, for a while about it." And they said, "What if we did something from the books in anime form? It's being discussed as we speak." So, fans of Scott Pilgrim or the Scott Pilgrim movie, which actually was pretty good, uh, have this to look forward to whenever that happens, when and or if this happens. Next up. Oh, now we're going into...
We're transitioning to comic book news, correct?
We are.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
And actually, I will say in that transition that hey, if you're checking out the video version, go check out the show notes. Even if you're watching the audio version, check out the show notes, because we have some other stuff, including the news, including stuff in the clickbait section, such as what do you need to remember before Marvel's next crossover? Talking about Empyre. So there is a little catch-up guide that is in here, and also another article talking about Avengers, Marvel's Celestial Messiah, and who explains who that is, which I know we've talked about in the past, but it is that. And so, on to the comic book news. We get into a little bit of Toy Corner, actually, start off. There is a Marvel Select Taskmaster action figure that is being put out for $35. It looks pretty good, but I'm fairly certain that Agent 70 is like, it's not a Select, so screw it. I mean, it's not a Legend, so screw it. I'm not
I mean,
Speaking for him,
Select
I'm
is
just saying.
supposed to. Right. I was about to say Select is supposed to be like supposedly a nicer version, but I've got that particular version. It's kind of like the old school costume in Marvel Legends form. So, but there's plenty of people out there that like the Select figure line. So, you know, good for them. It's a slightly bigger scale. I believe it's 7. It's on the 7-inch scale because our notes say that this measures 7.5 inches tall. So the 6-inch scale is what, you know, at least I try to stay with consistent.
Right. It's a good looking figure
Next,
though. Next up.
oh sure. Next up, enough of the jibber jabber. I pity the fool who doesn't get their hands on the first ever Elite Mr. T figure. Pre-order now. It's a 2020 convention exclusive. It's got cloth for clothes and you know, chains up. You know, creating a neckline basically. So it's pretty cool looking.
Yeah, so for those that didn't know and not of a certain vintage, the one point, and I'm pretty sure there are wrestling fans who probably weren't there but probably still know this. Mr. T got in the wrestling ring, and I think noticeably, if I'm not mistaken, with Hulk Hogan.
Correct. And Roddy Piper.
And Roddy Piper, yes. So around the time, and this was like after the A-Team, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it was before, I think.
Was it?
Right, because it was whatchamacallit? It was Rocky 3. That was pre-8.
Okay. Well,
Rocky 3 was pre-team, if I'm not mistaken, because that's where Mr. T really got his big break as the enemy, basically, as the bad guy fighter in Rocky 3.
Right, but this was definitely after Hulk Hogan's Rock and Roll Wrestling. We try not to evoke that name too often because he's a dirtbag. But at this point, but nevertheless, that was the thing that happened. This was also probably during Mr. T serial and the cartoon of Mr. T's name. Probably after that, I think. I don't remember. Things blur together. I'm old. But nevertheless, this is around that time, so this is why you see the figure as it was. You see him in wrestling attire and with his gold chains and the camo outfit he was wearing at the time. I feel like I'd pick this up. I'm not even a wrestling fan, but you know, the only thing that would make it better is if I had a string on the back and his head. I pity the fool.
Yeah.
But next up, here we go. DC Collectibles division switches from Diamond to 4 new distributors. So yes, this is the follow-up to Diamond's withering relationship with Diamond Comics distributors. They also changed their toy distributors to, I don't know if it says here, DC has informed retailers that its collectibles division, DC Direct, has signed deals with 4 new distributors and will no longer be carried by Diamond Comics Distribution or Diamond Select Toys. DC Direct, so which means I guess those are collector's items at this point, huh? DC Direct produces action figures, action figures, statues, busts, props, replicas, and art prints, primarily for direct market. And I don't see. Let's see. Oh, here we go. DC Direct products will now be distributed by Entertainment Earth, Lunar Distribution, UCS Comic Distributors, and so basically Midtown, Lunar Distribution, and Entertainment Earth are handling. And looks like Sideshow will also still have some relationship with the company. So there you go. Next.
Right. You know, kind of screwing over retailers who are trying to order these toys for the people that want them. They're just going to have to pay, more shipping, and have to go through more hoops to order this stuff. But what can you do?
Potentially, yeah.
All right. The Spider-Man PS4 game that's upcoming, that's going to have Miles Morales as the lead in the expansion. Miles is going to be exhibiting a few unique abilities that Peter Parker does not have, and the upcoming game is going to implement them. Insomniac Games confirmed that Spider-Man Miles Morales will allow players to use Miles' Venom Shock and camouflage abilities in combat. On top of this, they'll have access to web-slinging gadgets and skills similar to what Peter has in Spider-Man PS4.
So yeah, and this particular one is coming out for PS5, not PS4. The mouse thing. I mean, they might do a double dip, but I don't think so. Regardless, hey, guess what? Miles is gonna have all of his abilities. There you go. Next up, speaking of Miles, Marvel confirmed where Miles Morales gets his PS5 costume 2 years ago. So apparently, thanks to the graces of Spider-Geddon, Miles Morales met the PS4 Spidey in comic book form, and herein lies a panel where the two of them talking, because Miles was leading a team and was not feeling too great about himself when PS4 Peter, I don't know what the designation of that version of Peter is, but regardless, basically it says that hey, that's a nice outfit you got up there, and they were basically talking, and the Peter was like, you know what, I got a Miles on my Earth, and he would be proud to know that there was, you know, someone like you that is around, and he basically is, and Peter says like, and Miles is like, hey, thanks, that means a lot. Your Miles is lucky to have a friend like you, and tell him I said hey. And then Peter says, oh, I'll do more than that, which means this could be potentially where Miles' PS5 gets his suit from. There you go.
Okay.
From a couple of years ago. I have still yet to read Spider-Geddon, much less Spider-Verse. Next up,
I remember this issue. I remember that issue where that happened. So it's right near. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good bit of, I guess, foresight. I don't know.
All right. So in more Marvel gaming news, you can hear it in my voice. Crystal Dynamics offered a new look at Marvel's Avengers, the upcoming single-player and cooperative action-adventure game, on Wednesday during its War Table live stream. And a lot happened. They described a lot of stuff that happened. They played, cutscenes and whatnot. So,
You can hear the energy in Agent 70's voice when talking about this.
Yeah, I was like, oh, for goodness sake.
No, this actually if you get a chance to check it out, it actually looks pretty good. And by the way, if you, I don't think we've talked about this, the name of the Marvel's Avengers game will be Avengers War Table, properly. So there you go. And there is this threat trailer, and there's also a co-op trailer that was also brought up around when this happened on Wednesday, and the story kind of gives a little bit more insight on that stuff on it. But I think it looks good. I think they got Kamala a little too light, but but nobody looks comic accurate or completely comic accurate in this, because this is like the Gamerverse universe. So it is what it is. Next up, and also speaking of Marvel's Avengers, so Marvel's Avengers is confirmed as a PS5 and Xbox X Series launch title. And I believe it is also going to come out on the PS4, and I'm going to take the next story because it is related to that. In that, Marvel's Avengers is confirmed to have a free upgrade to the PS5. So which means if you got the PS4 version, you will later get whenever you get a PS5, you will get a free upgrade to that version of the game, which has happened on occasion. Doesn't happen that often in transition of console cycles, but sometimes it happens, and it's kind of cool. And I think there's also a new texture mode that's also was touted in the last article about that's come along with it, because you can play the PS4, and then when it gets to the PS5, it'll be some enhanced graphics mode or something like that. But yeah, there you go. So you don't have to be afraid to buy the PS4 version when you don't have the PS5 yet. If you are so inclined, that probably might be me, but we'll see when that kind of time comes. Next up,
Marvel Comics' Senior Vice President of Publishing and Executive Editor Tom Brevoort wants to play a game of comic book editing. House of Ideas' top hands-on editor has launched an editorial simulation game on his personal blog. Like a tabletop RPG or revised version of fantasy football, players of Revort's editorial simulation will take weekly turns, with the game expected to run for 3 months. In the game, 5 players will act as group editors, 3 at Marvel, 1 at DC, and 1 at Image Comics, with the goal of successfully managing their titles commercially and critically. Sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, and of course, as you would expect, the jokes were flying on Twitter. One of which being, oh, also all DC has to do to win is to put out 10,000 books, and they've won. Oh, wait till last minute and put out through 10,000 books. And I believe there was a jab at Marvel about the whole CB Cebulski playing as a Japanese person. There was a joke about that also. So yeah, I know that sounds kind of interesting. I would like to see the rules of this if there are any outside of just it being going through, but I guess it's on this blog, so I don't know. That could be interesting, I guess. Next up, oh, so how are these? X-Men crossover X of Swords has almost doubled in size to 24 parts. I feel like we may have talked about this before, but I don't remember. So yeah, instead of being whatever it was initially, Hickman's just going to be getting a 24 parts to this whole big epic. Oh, so apparently, according to Newsarama, it was a 15 parts. Okay, well, I'll get to that in a second. So it was originally a 15-part story, and now with a new checklist for the crossover showing 24 parts. So yeah, this is going to be a very big event, folks. Not to be surprising, because Hoxpox, was what it was, and Hickman's earlier dealings with earlier events. No surprise here. Next up,
Marvel Tales, a short fiction series from Marvel's new media team, features writer G. Willow Wilson's return to the world of Kamala Khan with the Miss Marvel-centric story Late Spring. Focusing on life in quarantine, the story begins with Kamala describing how spring, and by extension growth, creeps up on you. She uses the metaphor of her neighbor's pearwood tree and how it's gotten taller and taller without Kamala really noticing the gradual process of growth. Most notably, though, the story celebrates the roles of essential workers. Nice to see G. Willow Wilson back on Ms. Marvel.
indeed. Next up, oh, actually, so we just got word from Tim about his click of the week. I'll just go ahead and get that out of the way right now. And it is just like Agent 70, Empyre, Avengers number 1.
Zero,
excuse me, sorry. But there you go. The full slate for the first time this year. Next up, let's see. Marvel promises 2 major turning points and beginning of Marvel's space age in Empyre's epilogues. And my apologies, folks, because these things are not coming up like they're supposed to. But then again, that's more of the site and not me, I don't think. But here we go. It would be wouldn't be a Marvel Comics event without tie-in issues, preludes, and epilogues. And this summer's Empyre, that finally launches post Diamond suspension July 15th, will be no different. In September, Marvel will publish 2 post-game epilogue one-shots: Empyre Aftermath, Avengers, and Empyre Fallout, Fantastic Four, which answered the question who will be left standing in the fallout of Empyre, I believe this article is trying to say. And both will have the added bonus of being alliterative. So, okay. Good stuff, I guess. Next.
Spoiler alert for Empyre Avengers number 0. Basically, it's a tease that's set up in the issue where There's a cliffhanger at the end of it. I prefer not to spoil it because these issues are going to come fast and furious, no pun intended, uh, very soon, because they were actually set to come out the week we went into lockdown here in New York. So, um, these issues are ready to be, to be distributed. We've already actually had our hands on preview copies for a while now, and the characters that they're being sent to war against, a quote unquote future MCU team is, I'll leave it to your imagination. It's not that hard though if you know what's coming out in solicitations.
Yes, if you follow solicitations. So there we go. But I'm sure we will be talking about it.
Very soon.
Yes, going forward. Next up, switching gears to another event that's going on simultaneously. Spoiler packs up their suit, but probably not for good in Outlawed. And apparently, this is a spoiler for a book that has already come out. In fact, I think this is about a book because actually, I don't know when this book came out. Did it come out last week? I don't remember. Regardless, spoilers for Ironheart 2020 number 2.
Oh, that was this week.
Okay. Yeah, see, I haven't been keeping up with, and this kind of goes to another thing. It was like, dang it, when crossovers.
No, I apologize. Rescue had a number 2.
Oh yeah, yeah, but I think so. Ironheart might have been last week. I think. I'm not sure. Regardless, apparently, as you would expect from whose book it is, Ironheart is going to be the one that gives up the suit for a little while, which is a shame. Due to what's going on in Outlawed, even though she is a part of Iron Man 2020. So you gotta love it when two events kind of cross over into each other like that, when you're only possibly reading one, if you're even reading one. But yeah, so that's the thing. We won't go into the story point of Outlaw because we will be talking about it a little bit more, and I need to catch up on it. Next up.
All right, next up, this is something I was referring to earlier. The Black Winter is coming in Thor number 5, and Donny Cates teased something epic for the Marvel U.
Wait a minute, you missed one. You missed one, but that's fine. I get it. You go ahead and finish that one.
The Outlawed one?
There was two of them. Yeah. But don't worry, keep doing yours. Keep doing that one.
Which one were you doing? You did pack up their suit. Okay. Outlawed, when Spoiler returns to Earth 616, it may spell trouble. That includes Earth 65's Gwen Stacy. And this is actually going to come up post the events of Ghost Spider number 10, which I talked about last week.
Yes. So it's a little bit of juggling you're going to have to do in the next few couple of weeks. But, it is to as it is. But yeah, go ahead and finish that the Thor one.
All right, yeah. So the next story, I already discussed it. That Donny Cates is going to be really creating something epic in the pages of Thor, and it's probably going to touch upon things like the creation of the Marvel Universe and Galactus's place in it. So it's going to be a pretty wild cosmic ride, and I'm looking forward to it.
And which is also weird because considering that stuff has been talked about in, but then again, you can't talk about Galactus and not talk about the creation of the universe. So at some point,
right.
Anyway, Immortal Hulk 0 promises to reveal new secrets of the monster's origin. Solicitation for September's Immortal Hulk 0 teases an all new secrets related to Bruce Banner's monstrous father Brian. And so there appears to be more to Hulk's origin than fans previously thought. If Immortal Hulk 0 delivers on its promise of new secrets regarding Bruce Banner's insane father Brian. According to the solicitors, the upcoming issue will feature an all-new tale featuring the man who made Bruce Banner's childhood a living nightmare and thus played a part in Bruce becoming the Green Goliath, which also promises to delve into the aforesaid secrets behind them. The issue will also reprint Brian Banner's centric tales from 1985's The Incredible Hulk 312 by Bill Mantlo and Mike Mignola, and 1997's The Incredible Hulk #1 by Peter David and Adam Kubert. And I believe this was Ewing talking about this while he was also saying something about there could be an Immortal Hulk styling for She-Hulk coming down the pike, which I thought this article, or maybe another article that I was looking at, suggested. But yeah, there we go. Immortal Hulk Zero is coming. Boom. Next.
All right, next up, picking up on a story, a dangling story plot line. The Fantastic Four comic is about to tackle an untold story that was teased all the way back at the beginning of Slott's run. Just how, why, and most importantly, when was Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, a member of the Fantastic Four? We'll find out more in September's Fantastic Four number 24, which tells the story of that time Iceman replaced the Human Torch as a member of the Fantastic Four.
I do remember this and love how they just kind of slid that in there when we were talking about when we were reading Fantastic Four, because it's kind of funny. And just think, he could have replaced Herbie, who replaced the Human Torch in the animated series, which that's not true. I made that up. Anyway, next up, Darth Vader ended Luke Skywalker's pod racing career, which we did not know he had. So apparently this is coming from Star Wars Annual number 4, which I assume is out. I don't remember seeing that being out, but if it is, whatever. So yeah, apparently Vader did something, and even before Luke could even have a pod racing career, excuse me, Vader put the kibosh on it for somehow, some way. So yeah, I without knowing, because I haven't read this, so I would expect there was some pod race that he was trying to enter, and he did, and the name of Skywalker got mentioned. He was like, nope, you can't race. But I know that probably wouldn't be the case. But if it is, I'm sorry for ruining it for everyone. Again, I have no clue. That's probably not it. So just don't take that for me being silly. Anyway, next up.
Right. And unfortunate, as my audio go wonky again, illustrator and designer Lauren Tracy, a.k.a. Lorua, has accused Spider-Man and Southern co-creator of harassment. An account posted Tuesday, Lorua detailed Latour 2017's Thought Bubble Festival in Leeds, where he allegedly offered her free comics if she went to his hotel room with him, then continued to proposition her throughout the weekend. Gross.
Yeah. And I will go ahead and say that buckle up, folks, because this is the block where there's going to be a few of these stories going on. So if you are sensitive to that kind of stuff and don't want to hear about it, maybe skip ahead probably a good 5-10 minutes, probably 10 minutes. But yeah, this was Jason Latour, if anybody didn't hear what that got accused. As far as I know, he hasn't said anything, in response to it or whatever, but I don't know. But I imagine we will probably hear something at some point, if that's going to happen or not. I don't know. He may have said something on Twitter. I missed it. Whatever. And not whatever, too, because sexual harassment is a serious allegation. So don't take this from me being flippant about any of this. Next up, DC pulls Warren Ellis's death metal story following series of allegations. So yes, and this was, now mind you, the Warren Ellis accusations came before the Jason Latour, actually days before the Jason Latour one, and I think some of these other ones. I think it was probably one of the first recent batches. As this thing doesn't want to pull up, apparently. DC has pulled a planned Warren Ellis Jim Chung story from the August 4th Dark Knight's Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knight #1 anthology. The previously announced 2-page story in Dark Knight's Death Metal Legends of the that thing by Warren Ellis and Jim Chung will be replaced with a 2-page story written by Marguerite Bennett, and illustrated by Jamal Igle. Reads the announcement to retailers in an email sent out Friday evening. Good Lord. The publisher did not provide a reason for the removal of the story, which was to be the origin of the alternate universe Batman who lives in a robotic Tyrannosaurus Rex, B-Rex. And there is a follow-up to the allegations, which we'll talk about now.
All right, so Warren Ellis responded to the sexual misconduct allegations made against him by several women. He says that he never considered himself famous or powerful. In a statement that he posted on Twitter, it never occurred to him that other people didn't see it the same way, that he was not engaging as an equal when gifted with attention, but acting from a position of power and privilege. He did not take that into account in a number of his personal interactions, and that was a mistake, and he owns it. While he's made many bad choices in the past and said a lot of wrong things, he wants to make it clear that he never consciously coerced, manipulated, or abused anyone, nor has he ever assaulted anybody. But he was ignorant of where he was operating from at a time when he should have been clear, and he accepts 100% responsibility for that. And I'm paraphrasing. You should read his full statement.
Yes, but it's pretty much how the article also has it in strokes. So there is that. And then next up, Comic Book Legal Defense Fund Executive Director Charles Brownstein has resigned in face of resurfacing sexual assault allegations. Charles Brownstein, Executive Director of the Legal Defense Fund, has resigned effective immediately because of said sexual assault allegations. A statement sent to CBR reads, and as we plan for the future with new leadership in place, we will work with our staff and human resource experts to continue developing policies that will make us a stronger organization. And then there is a full statement from the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund that you can read in the article for yourself. Next up.
All right, next up, Dark Horse Comics has responded to the latest allegations of sexual assault against former editor-in-chief Scott Alley, vowing to cease working with him now and in the future. Following new allegations from former editor Shauna Gore, Dark Horse released a statement supporting Gore and cutting ties with Alley. We believe Shauna Gore, the statement reads, in a tweet posted along with the company statement. Effective immediately, Dark Horse Comics will not be working with Scott Alley now or in the future. We apologize to fans, creators, and employees for all the damage and hurt Scott has caused.
Yes. And if you've been paying attention to Twitter for any length of time in the last week, like, the comic books industry is not the only ones that's been having a bunch of allegations in it, like video games definitely, and movies and TV also. In the wake of some of that, some male comic creators, I don't know who put this together, so I don't know where this originally came from, but there has been a hashtag comics pledge floating around the Twitters, and some folks have been posting the image that if you're watching the video, you can see, and I'm pointing to the video, I'm pointing to the screen like y'all can see me. Why am I doing that? Anyway, and it says, men in comics say no. I'm not going to read all of this, but check out the video if you're so inclined, please, to check it out. There are a lot of ideas we claim to honor in comics: hope, justice, unity, innovation, creativity, and freedom. None of them mean anything unless men in comics change our behavior and hold each other accountable for the safety of women and all people of marginalized genders and sexes. And then it goes on into a pledge, which, as someone on my Twitter timeline likened to a virginity pledge, and would probably have the equal amounts of validity to it. Yeah, that is a thing. It is a step. It is a nugget. But just hey, folks in power, especially men in power, more specifically, don't be assholes. Don't be dicks. Stop this. Stop using the power to try to get have sex or just assaulting people. Any of this, I don't know. This is so crazy that this keeps happening, and you would think people would start to learn that this is just not shit that you should be doing. But yet here we are. but now there was more I was going to say to that, but it's I don't think there's not much else I could really say that was going to add much to the voices that are already out there saying very good things and very much things against this kind of assault. So we're just going to move on to the next story.
All right, next story is Deceased redeems a Justice League hero with their hope at World's End. So the notes are incorrect in our show notes, but the story is in Deceased Hope at World's End #3, a fan favorite superhero earns redemption and proves why they are one of the greatest characters in the DCU. It's the spoilers for Hope at World's End #3 by Tom Taylor, Carmine Di Giandomenico, Rex Locus, and Saida Temofonte. Right, so in issue #3 focuses entirely on Wally West, who proves yet again why he's one of the greatest superheroes in the DCU. So I'm not going to go into the full spoilers, but it's apparently a very Wally-centric issue.
Yeah, I also realized that there was a lot of bias, let's say, because I know Wally is a lot of people's. We talked about this in the past. Wally is a lot of people's first and only Flash.
We talked about it last week, how he was the only Flash that was around for Identity Crisis.
Right.
And, treated as the moral center of the Justice League.
Right. So it's the one that a whole lot of people know of. So that's why you get things like people saying that he is one of the greatest characters in the DCU, because that's probably who they grew up with. Regardless, there you go. It's out there. Death Metal gives Wonder Woman the perfect sidekick, and actually, it's a character that we have talked about earlier in the show. So this is a spoiler for Dark Knight's Death Metal #1, which I think you read last week.
Yeah.
I don't remember this being mentioned, but it is what it is. So yeah, Wonder Woman is being partnered with Swamp Thing for whatever's going on in that issue. In that book, because I don't know and I haven't been reading it. But
it's wacky.
Yeah. So there you go, Swamp Thing. Poof. Next up.
All right. Spoiler alert. Also in Death Metal, the event reshapes the DC universe into something akin to Middle Earth. There is a map that definitely reminds one of the map that is featured within the Lord of the Rings trilogy, drawn by one Bilbo Baggins after his adventures in The Hobbit.
Okay. If you're watching the video, you can see said page with said map. And I don't see the Shire anywhere, but weirdly enough, it's almost the map is shaped like the bat symbol.
No big surprise.
Yeah, no coincidence there. Probably. Next up. Oh shoot! Come on, don't do this. All right. Well, while that loads up, I will push over here and go to the other side of the news. Here we go. Spoilers for You Brought Me to the Ocean, which is a DC book. Alex Sanchez, author of the prose novel series Rainbow Boys, reimagined the origin story of DC's Aqualad, aka Jackson Hyde, in a recently released original graphic novel, You Brought Me to the Ocean. Once a sidekick of Aquaman, Aqualad is reimagined here by Sanchez and artist Julie Moreau in his own story and with his own agency and identity. With the book now on shelves and in people's hands, and less of a fear of spoiling people, Duzarama spoke with Sanchez about the story, and the rest is in an interview with Alex Sanchez. So you can go check that out and check out that book whenever it is. I'm assuming it is out or coming out soon, because I can't pull up the story. Next up.
Okay. I had to just take a look at the article to find out what it is. Young Justice gets a new team name, and it's apparently absolutely perfect in somebody's opinion. Young Justice returned to the DC universe in the Wonder Comics imprint and has reunited several old Young Justice characters in the most recent issue. During a discussion, somebody recommend
This
that they
this
their
article
name.
is written by Tim.
Good job, Tim. Good old Tim Dog 98.
Yeah, and I'm not caught up on on Young Justice, so I don't know what it is. I'm just gonna skip past this. Keep on.
I was just gonna say that Tim Drake wants to enthusiastically change their name to Young Justice League. Okay.
Oh, okay, so it's not that. Okay, I guess sure. I mean, that's kind of what they were.
It's fine.
So, yeah, I guess sure. I mean, again, that's pretty much what they were. So, all right, moving right along. DC just confirmed that you've been saying blank the spoiler the whole time, and apparently, it is the city. This is spoiler alert for Nightwing Annual number 3, I guess. This is the city where Nightwing resides. Bloodhaven? I don't know how to pronounce it because I just see it and I don't know how to say it. So apparently,
As opposed to blood, it's blood.
exactly. So yeah. So here is the panel I'm showing on the video as Nightwing is disco dancing through some enemies. He's breakdance fighting and schooling these folks on how to say Bloodhaven because the U is an umlaut. It sounds like an E sound. So there you go. Finally, the mystery has been solved. Next up.
Next up, something that we discussed and did not want to spoil in our discussion earlier about Batman number 93, about the real identity of the designer. So I'm not going to spill it here, but it was not that big a surprise to me. The surprise did seem to subvert PCN underscore Dirt's expectations, so that's fine. But yeah, they revealed the real identity of the designer, who we all thought was the person pulling the strings. But again, as we said earlier, there is a swerve in the story.
Is it someone notable, at least?
Of course.
Wait, is it someone that you would expect? Well, because since it's not.
Yeah, I was not going to spoil it anymore.
Well,
But
no,
yeah,
I know.
like I wasn't as surprised as maybe PCN underscore Dirt was.
Because I feel like I know who it is, but it might not be that case, and it's
Oh,
probably
but
the
what we
person you
have
would
is-
think it would be.
Right. What I was going to say is what we have though is something that both PCN underscore Dirt and I agreed upon, which is that the final ending of the book and what the current status quo of the characters are is definitely something novel to any Batman reader. So that's what makes that's the swerve that makes it interesting. The character behind the swerve, not so much.
Yeah, and apparently the permalink probably, as it tends to do, spoiled that identity. And if that is the case, yes, I'm very much not surprised. And also, because I think there was another article that we might have even talked about last week about that had something to do with that. But anyway, next up, Lois Lane just killed a DCEU hero for a few minutes. And this is spoiler for Lois Lane number 11, which I haven't read yet, but I should. If you are a fan of Gotham PD, you should probably check that out. It's pretty good. So yeah, this is the penultimate issue of that maxi series, as they call it. And apparently, I mean, I'm gonna just go ahead and properly spoil it for. No, I'm not gonna do that, but it actually kind of already is. Never mind. I'm still going to spoil it. So Lois has been working with Renee Montoya, who's been to the question, and she kills Renee Montoya for a few minutes some kind of way, but who ends up coming back later on and says, "I got better." That's okay. That's a Monty Python reference for those not in the know. Anyway, next up,
DC just teased a major LGBTQ retcon from the New 52 is actually still canon, and this happened in the opening story of the Green Lantern 80th anniversary 100-page super spectacular story that we discussed earlier. That was entitled "Dark Things Cannot Stand the Light," where the recently reintroduced Earth Prime Alan Scott Green Lantern is also implied to be gay. So, that's just continuing on the path of the New 52 reboot.
right? So, which again was one of the better stories I thought in that thing. So yeah, the way they handled that, I think. Bendis shares all-star artists for Trial of the Legion of Superheroes. Eisner Award winner and writer and artist Wait, when did Bendis become an artist? Brian Michael Bendis shared a poster filled with all of the artists involved in the Trial of the Legion of Superheroes, a story arc to take place in Legion of Superheroes 8 and 9. Bendis revealed the poster on Twitter, describing the upcoming story as a dazzling, spectacular, and amazeballs as it sounds. All the veteran artists involved include miniseries. Included in the miniseries include Mike Allred, Adrian. I'm not going to go through all these lists, but it's a pretty much stacked bunch of names, including shout out to former guest of the show Sanford Green, and a bunch of others. And you can see the tweet right there if you're watching the video. So there you go. Next up.
All right, next up, in part 2 of an interview with Dan DiDio, Newsarama asked DiDio about lots of things. You know, it was a pretty wide-ranging interview. And DiDio admits in the interview why he hated Wally West and Dick Grayson. And I actually took affront to this. I read this in real time.
It's not as bad as what the title says.
It was stupid. So essentially, I'm not going to open up the article, but essentially, you know, he hated the fact, and I'm speaking in very broad terms without having to read his drivel again. That you know, essentially, that he just didn't like the fact that these characters were eventually going to surpass their mentors as they were legacy characters. So, you know. That was essentially the gist of it. Like I said, once I read that, I was like, okay, I'm glad you're former.
Well, yeah, but it also starts.
Opinions expressed herein are those of Agent_70.
Indeed. Yeah, it was rightly because basically he says like, yeah, a lot of it was for show because whatever, but then also of it, some of it's like, well, these are legacy characters, and as Agent 70 says, and it just ends up being really, all right, dude. What ifs? Next up, we are now getting a Stranger Things and Dungeons and Dragons comic book crossover. So it looks like 2020 will continue to bring a few delights. I haven't seen any. Interspersed with everything going on and going to Helena Handcart. Accurate. And one of those is an IDW licensed comic book that crosses over with a Dark Horse licensed comic book to bring us a Stranger Things and Dungeons and Dragons comic book. This is not the only time we've had such a crossover. The Rick and Morty and Dungeons and Dragons comic from IDW and Oni Press was a classic, so this person, whoever wrote this, says. But this is the first time that Stranger Things have taken part in an official comic book crossover, because I believe that the last season probably did have some Dungeons and Dragons things from what people say. I have not watched that show. But anyway, hey, guess what? There is a book. And the creative team will be Jody Hauser and Jim Zub, not surprising there, writing the crossover together. The comic will be drawn by Diego Galindo, colored by Masiek, with letters from Nate Piekos. I apologize to both of those people if I butchered your names. And the cover is by Diego Galindo. And you can see the cover right there if you're watching the video. And the names of the people who I butchered. Next up,
a new Goosebumps limited comic series from current license holder IDW Publishing, entitled Goosebumps Secrets of the Swamp, will soon be on the horizon. From writer Marieki Nichkamp, artist Yasmin Flores Montañez, and colorist Rebecca Nalty. The upcoming 5-issue series, the 4th Goosebumps limited series published by IDW, is going to focus on a 12-year-old Blake, and there's more to it. Please feel free to read our show notes.
Yes, you'll forgive us for our speeding this along, because one, there's a lot of news, and two, it's hot. At least that's on my end. I don't know what, I assume. I can only assume on Agent 70's part. But yeah, that was that. Next up,
just running out of gas, so
yeah,
I'm literally running out of gas and fading fast, so just trying to speed this along.
Power Rangers news. Well, well, I'll go ahead and say it. Lord Drakon just returned, and they could change everything. And that is spoilers for this week's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 50. And apparently, this might also radically alter the team's status quo in some kind of way. I haven't been keeping up, so I don't know. But regardless, hey, that is the thing. And now that I think about it, from what I do remember reading, probably is expected. Next up,
Vault Comics announces Nightfall 2020 horror series, The Autumnal. It involves a mother-daughter duo embarking on a bizarre journey in The Autumnal, a new Vault Comics horror series from its annual Nightfall imprint, written by New York Times bestselling author Daniel Kraus, with art by Chris Sheehan, colors by Jason Wordie, letters by Jim Campbell, and designed by Tim Daniel.
cool. Check that out if you feel it. Next up, I saw this on Twitter, so I was like, okay, this makes sense, and I want to check this out whenever I can. But on January 12th, 2021, apparently there will be a graphic novel history of the Black Panther Party with the creative team of David F. Walker, Marcus Kwame Anderson doing the illustrations, and I think that's it. So yeah, like I said, I saw some buzz about this on Twitter, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, sure. I'm kind of here for this. I like both of those people, and I mean, I know a little bit about the Black Panther Party, but still, this is something that is to my interest, and this is being released by Penguin Random House. So again, you have to wait till 2021 for this to come out, but nevertheless, you can pre-order it now if you so wish to do so. Next up,
River Song and her original quote-unquote sweetie are back together in a new Doctor Who audio drama. We're gonna need a bigger TARDIS. After over a decade apart and several doctors, excuse me,
bless you.
in between, thank you, Big Finish has announced that David Tennant and Alex Kingston are returning as the 10th Doctor and River Song in a new Doctor Who audio series. Okay.
Yep. So Doctor Who fans unite. You still got audio stuff from your faves. Last but not least, for tonight, you can read the first chapter of Star Wars: The High Republic, Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule, and on IGN. So prepare to take your first step into a new era of Star Wars. Hey, KK. Prepare to take your first step into a new era of Star Wars set 200 years before the events of the Skywalker saga. The High Republic finds the Jedi at their peak as they watch over the galaxy during a time of peace. But it's not long before that peace is disturbed by a devastating incident, and the Knights of the Jedi Order must spring into action. And apparently, from what I saw of another article, there's a Holdo-like maneuver that ends up happening in the course of this book that plays a big significant part in this. Spoilers, no spoilers, I guess. But the book itself will be coming out January 5th, 2021. But again, you can go to the link in the show notes from IGN to read the first chapter of the book. And that, folks, is the end of the news, and we're rounding out the end of the Comic Book Chronicles, but first, an ad read.
Our last ad read of the night is for Funko. Fun at first sight. Your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel including t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise such as custom DIY pop figures. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today.
Sorry, had myself on mute for a second. This is the end of the show, folks, which means it's time to go. Sorry, but you gotta get the heck up out of here. So we'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, with actually our last event. Well, presumably the last event type stuff that we're going to be doing. And it will be the original graphic novel of the New Mutants from Marvel, in all its glory. So if you want to read along, feel free. We are also doing the 2-issue Demon Bear arc of New Mutants, which I believe is 18 and 19 or 19 and 20. Let me look at this thing real quick before. Yes. New Mutants 18 through 20 of, I'm assuming, the first volume of New Mutants. And if you have Marvel Unlimited, or if you have those, issues, you can read along with us. Along with, like I said, the original graphic novel of the New Mutants. And I need to go ahead and start getting ahead on reading that stuff. So yeah, that'll be next week's show. If we have any, pertinent new releases that we might want to talk about, we might do that then. But until then, folks, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. My name is Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at NewsNerdsNeed on Twitter. You can also find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 you can find on Twitter and Instagram. PC_Dirt that you saw there for a brief moment. You can find at PC_Dirt on Twitter. You can find him at PopCultureNet on Twitter. You can find him at PopCultureNetwork.com and all his umbrella sites therein. You can also find him on the the Vine alternative, Byte, BYTE, under Comic Reviews, no vowels. What you won't find him anytime soon is here on Comic Book Chronicles. Tim, DOGG98 on Twitter, the Osiris that is Ish. You can find him there at that. You can also find him at The Click Nation on Twitter. That's DKLIQNATION. You can also find him at CB Chron, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. You can also find him at theclicknation.com. You can also find him at Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off, and as you have seen. Again, folks, you can find this here podcast on CSPN, the Coastal Podcast Network, the CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us at your podcast personal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, Spotify, and the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. You can also find us here every Thursday night about 9:30ish, let's say, PM, recording live on YouTube at the Click Nation's YouTube page. You can go, come watch the magic as it unfolds or implodes, whichever one happens. But until next week, folks. Whoa, what happened? Okay. This is the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes together.